and welcome back to Concilium Watch. Today we're going to be talking about Combined Army's most structure-heavy sectorial, Onyx Contact Force. In the lore, Onyx is composed of some of the most elite units in the Combined Army. Their job is to establish contact with new races and present them with a choice: join or die. On the tabletop, Onyx has access to many different alien races from the Combined Army. They usually utilize the remote presence Unidron Batroids to form their core fire teams. They also have access to many tags, some of which can even be in a Harris or duo fire team. One thing to note is that paramedics or doctors are relatively hard to come by in Onyx. Thankfully, because there's so many structure units running around, you may not notice it as much as long as you have an engineer or two. Before we get started, let's once again go over the checklist of 5 things you'll usually need in a sectorial army list. A core fire team to take advantage of fire team bonuses, specialists to press buttons and complete the mission, high burst weapons to use in your active turn to kill your enemies, defensive pieces to either slow down your enemy's advance or kill them on the reactive turn. And finally, orders, because the more orders you have, the more you can do. As always, the lists in the video are in the description below, and we want you to know that this is not the way to play Onyx. This is just my way to play, and we encourage you to try out your own lists and ideas to find your own playstyle. With that out of the way, let's get started. Alright, we're in Army 7. Let's go ahead and go to the Combined Army symbol and select Onyx Contact Force. Before we get started, let's go ahead and check out this Fireteam chart. Onyx gets access to unlimited duos, 2 Fireteam Harrises, and 1 Fireteam Core. We have the Unidron's Fireteams. They can be either a Harris or a Core. You have to have at least 1 Unidron. You can add in Nexus, who count as Unidrons, and you can also add in up to 3 Umbra Legates. Next, we've got the Onyx Fire Teams. They can either be a duo, a Harris, or a Core. You can insert Suryats up to 3, Kurgats up to 2, Umbra Samaritans up to 3, Umbra Legates up to 3, and you can also include 1 Makrep Tracker in this fire team. In terms of what must be included here, it just has to be one of these 4 at least. So pretty flexible there. Next up, we've got the Rhodox fire teams. They can be a duo or a Harris, and of course you must have at least 1 to form that fire team. Then we've got the Zeodron's fire team. That can be a duo or a Harris. Zeodrons are actually tags, so this is a big deal. Being able to run tags in a Harris is really fun. You have to have at least 1 Zeodron. You can include Umbra Samaritans, who count as Zeodrons, and of course Norkius is a character Umbra Samaritan who also counts as a Zeodron. So if you run all of these together, you could get the +3 bonus to discover. And next up, we've got the Overdron's fire team. These are a duo, and the Overdrons are another tag in this faction. So you must have at least 1, and you could maybe include a wild card or a second Overdron if you really wanted to. Speaking of wild cards, we've got a few here. We've got the Nexus. You can have up to 1 that can wildcard in. You can have Kurnau. He's a character Nexus. He actually counts as a Unidron for Fireteam Purity. You get the FTO profile of Kodali. And of course, we've got Norkius, who can wildcard as either a Umbra Samaritan or Umbra Legate in terms of purity values. Alright, for this first list, let's get started with our core fire team, I guess. You'll notice that when I'm building a core in these, in any Onyx Contact Force list, you're really going to want to lean into the Unidrons as your main fire team. They're just very cheap, very durable in terms of being remotes, so they can be repaired relatively easily. And of course, since they are remotes, they also have the opportunity to receive marksmanship from an Evo hacker. They're just very cheap and very useful pieces. They've got some really nice weapons. So because they're remotes, they're not up near the top where all the light infantry is. That's where we normally start in these videos. But down here in the REM category, we've got Unidron Batroids. Now, these, like I mentioned, have remote presence, which means they have 2 levels of unconscious. They have courage, which is really useful if you're using them as a defensive core fire team. Make sure that they'll always be standing and never duck down because they get scared. They are shock immune, which is nice. Dogged is very important because if you get to a position where you really need to hold the line for the rest of this turn, or your opponent's turn, you can go into Dogged, and that'll just force them to have to try and remove you with one more order. The other thing to note is how Dogged works with remote presence. Because you have 2 levels of unconscious, these units have 1 structure, and if they take 1 wound, they would go unconscious. If they take 2 wounds, then they go double unconscious, is the thing that we normally call it. And even while double unconscious, you can activate Dogged. So it means that this Unidron Batroid technically has to take 3 wounds in order to be removed completely, which is really nice. The Unidrons also come with a Discover +3 natively, which is really nice, and counteracts a little bit their Whip 12, which is pretty bad. Well, it's Pano bad, but we deal with that. And then they get a blanket dodge +1 inch, which is nice, but with Fizz 10, you gotta hope you're never using it. Anyway, so let's take a look at these options here. I am going to go for the Plasma Sniper Rifle. Plasma Sniper Rifle is a really nasty weapon. It, like all sniper rifles, has a really great range band, and plasma means that it's going to be placing a template, just like a missile launcher, and each of these hits are going to deal 1 armor save and 1 BTS save. So you can really deal a lot of damage to units that might have more armor than BTS or more BTS than armor. You've got the best of both worlds there in terms of damaging your opponent. So let's go ahead and grab the Plasma Sniper Rifle as our main ARO piece. Next up, I usually would go for something like a Paramedic, but you'll notice that there aren't any Paramedics here. In fact, the only specialist that we have here is this Unidron Forward Observer with a Plasma Carbine and a Flash Pulse. For only 15 points, that's a really solid deal in my opinion. So I think we can grab 2 of these. They're not really going to be our main focus of trying to press the button with these guys, but it's nice to have, and Plasma Carbine in ARO or the active turn is going to be a really solid weapon, especially in a fire team. So let's go ahead and grab 2 of these. But I think let's go ahead and move to the Nexus operatives. The Nexus are going to be very important to how Onyx sort of survives, I want to say. You've got a lot of really great options here. They don't have many special skills, but the ones that they do have are really nice, like the dodge +3, making their Fizz 11 allow them to dodge on a 14. Very nice. And they have just basically solid stats, right? You've got BS 12, that's great. Whip 13 is solid. Arm 1 and BTS 3 are nothing to write home about, but it's something, right? The key here is that Nexus will count as pure for the Unidrons, and there are a couple profiles here that are going to be really useful in Onyx. So one of them is this lieutenant profile. Only 16 points, no SWC, and your lieutenant is a specialist operative. I mean, that's something that many other lieutenants don't even have. So being able to spend that lieutenant order late game to go and press a button to win you the game, that could be a big deal. So let's grab him. And obviously he's only 1 point more than the Unidron Forward Observer, so we're not really losing much here. Next up, we can go ahead and grab... So there's a couple things here that are really useful for this fire team. Obviously, we've got an engineer here with NCO, Vulcan shotgun, decharges, a gizmo kit. Only 22 points. That's really quite good. So I think I'm going to grab that one, because obviously the engineer is going to be able to heal up the rest of the Unidrons, especially your sniper. That's the one that's going to be taking the most hits. And being able to just immediately get that Unidron back up and shooting again could be really cool. The one thing to watch out for is that if you send your Unidron into Dogged, that's it for them. It's a one-way street. They cannot be repaired after they go into the Dogged state. So you have to make that decision. Do you want to go unconscious, or do you want to stay up and go Dogged and lose them forever? So just something to keep in mind. So we have our main core fire team. We could go for something like a Harris, or we could start to grab some of the really solid solo pieces we have in Onyx. And I think for this first list, let's try to highlight some of those solo pieces. So obviously one of the biggest ones is going to be Norkius. Norkius is a character Umbra Samaritan. I am not going to read through all of his abilities. Just know that he is incredibly good. He's obviously got multiple wounds with shock immunity. He's bioimmune. He's got amazing close combat ability and Prothion, which means that when he is eating you in close combat, when he's attacking you in close combat, he is stealing your wounds, as long as you do have wounds and not structure. So Norkius is someone who is going to run up the field, eat the first midfielder he finds, and then terrorize the battlefield on 3 wounds, or 2 wounds and no wound in cap, or 3 wounds and no wound cap. Once you get that ball rolling, it's really hard to deal with. So the one that I always go for is the Killer Hacker. The Killer Hacker is set aside as the better one, in my opinion, because Killer Hacking Device gives you access to Cybermask. So because he's a unit that really likes to be in melee, it's great to have abilities that allow him to get there. So in this case, he can Cybermask up and use that to cross gaps in the midfield and not have to worry about getting shot by a sniper from a mile away, right? The other thing that's nice about the Killer Hacking Device is it makes him a specialist. So he's going to be able to use his Whip 15 to press buttons in the midfield if you really want to. So definitely highly recommend this guy. The only other skill I will mention that is very important to the way this guy works is NCO. So NCO is what's going to allow him to use our Nexus Lieutenant's Lieutenant Order as his own, and it's basically like a free Cybermask every turn, right? So let's go ahead and grab Norkius for sure. Alright, well, another solo piece that is one of my favorites to run. We've got someone who can run up and be a specialist. I want to have someone who's already going to start across the table and be just a terrorizer in the enemy deployment zone. We've got right here the Greif operators. Not amazing ballistic skill of 11, but it gets the job done because they've got MSV1, Courage and Stealth, and the one that we're looking at here is ironically the cheapest profile for some reason, except you do have to pay some SWC. It's the impersonation profile. All the other ones, they get mimetism and forward deployment plus 8 inches, whatever, right? These could be pretty good, honestly, if you wanted to. But the key here is that this guy is not a specialist. So we don't really care about him being in the midfield. We want him to just be right behind the enemy, causing as much problems as possible. And impersonation is what's going to help him do that. So impersonation, he does have impersonation level 2, or impersonation 2, which is not the one that has a negative to discover. So he's just going to be 0 to discover. But all he needs is to be able to maneuver around to get behind your enemies and just light them up with a combi rifle, or more preferably, the breaker pistol +1 burst. He's also got decharges, which can help you in multiple missions, and there's a classified that you could do with him as well. The key with this guy is to just use him at the best opportunity you can find to scalpel out something scary that will free up the rest of your army to do even worse, more evil things. So let's go ahead and grab him. Alright, so then another group of characters that are very useful and will appear frequently in Onyx lists, in my opinion, they are going to be Bit and Kiss. So Bit and Kiss are what used to be the most optimized hacker in the game. Might still be pretty close. Jazz is kind of beating her a bit, I think, but she's still extremely good. Obviously, she's not that great at shooting, but that's not what she's here for. She has a solid whip of 13 and a BTS of 6. That's going to help her survive against enemy hacking attacks. The cool thing is that she comes with a synchronized peripheral, who is KISS, which stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. This character used to be a human that was a hacktivist, but she either went willingly or was taken into the combined army. The jury's still out, but I think all of us know what really happened. Basically, she is a great hacker. We've got a peripheral here that can either have a pitcher +1 burst with a deployable repeater, along with an adhesive launcher, or just be a repeater itself and have a adhesive launcher, right? So the key here is because they're synchronized, you're going to want to move up to a position that's defensible and either use KISS's repeater itself to increase your hacking network, or use KISS to launch these pitchers out to basically do the same thing, but you'll have a much wider net for only one more point. So in my opinion, the one that you're always going to want to go for is this profile here. The one that comes with an SMG, a pitcher, deployable repeater, and this version of KISS. So if we grab that, the key here is that KISS is not a repeater in this profile because the killer hacking device allows her to, much like Norkius, go into the cybermask state. And because synchronized peripherals share the states of their masters, KISS will also get cybermasked. So one order, now you've got 2 cybermasked units that can move up the field and do a lot of things. And obviously that's 1 pitcher and then 2-3 pitchers. So if you wanted to, you could even move up, shoot a pitcher with Bit, shoot 2 pitchers with KISS, and I mean, there's basically nothing else in the game that can put out that many repeaters all at once. So for that reason, Bit is really useful. Obviously, she's also got a mine layer too, so she starts on the table with a deployable repeater in your deployment zone. So there's really not much you can't go wrong with 21 points for all of this. All right. Let's see. So we've got a few of the, like, we've got some support from Norkius to go up and do some close combat killing. We've got harassment here. We've got hacking to put up spotlights or even hack enemies and lock them down. Let's go ahead and grab... Honestly, wow, we've got like a lot of points left too. So let's go ahead and let's invest in a Q-drone. So Q-drones are the standard total reaction bot, but of course it's combined army. They get something special. They get the mimetism -3, which is something that only these types of total reaction bots have. We could go for the plasma rifle, but I think that we're kind of lacking in some long-range firepower here. We have the sniper, but obviously that might go down pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and grab the HMG. And if we're grabbing the Q-drone, we may as well go ahead and pick up the E-drone as well. E-drone is going to be really useful in this army just because in addition to buffing something like a Q-drone, you could buff your Unidrons. And while the Unidrons don't have a repeater next to them, so in order to put assisted fire on a Unidron, you need to make sure that you have the Unidron you want to buff in your hacking area. A little bit of synergy here is you could deploy Bit's deployable repeater at the beginning of the game with her mine layer skill in range of this plasma rifle or plasma sniper rifle Unidron to put that assisted fire on them. The other thing that the Evo hacking device E-drone gets is a combi rifle. It's the only Evo device bot in the game that comes with a weapon that it can use to defend itself. So that's nice. Let's go ahead and grab that. So we've got our first combat group here. We do have more points to use. We could go ahead and try to fill out our defense now. So one of the things that Onyx sort of needs to do is invest a little bit in their deployment zone defense, in my opinion. So if we go for these Icadron bat droids, these are going to be really useful in many missions because they have baggage. So if you're doing something like quadrant control, you can use them to help dominate a zone for more than just their 9 points. You can also use them to defend your table edges with their flamethrowers because nobody wants to land a drop troop right in your deployment zone in front of a light flamethrower. They also act as repeaters, so they're helping increase the range of Bit's hacking ability here. And yeah, I mean, they're just really good. They've got a Whip 13 Flash Pulse too, so they act as your flash bots in this army if your flash bots were a little bit more expensive and had flamethrowers, right? So these are a way to hit back if someone has run out of steam coming at you. You can run forward and double flame them, which could be nice. So I'm going to start with 2. So because they're AVA2 and they're only 9 points, it should be pretty easy to bring 2 of these, and that can really help us balance out our deployment zone and stay safe. Now, for more orders, we've got access to a really nasty support troop here. Only 4 points for a regular order that doesn't do anything. It can't do anything except sit there and die. But they do drop in on the table, and they are veterans, which is pretty cool. So in general, just understand that these are really cheap orders that you do have to sort of defend, but they're really easy to hide because they're you can just place them in your deployment zone. You can try to land them in your deployment zone. If they fail, then they come in on your table edge in your deployment zone, which is still easy to defend usually. So let's go ahead and grab 2 of these for now. We're kind of getting to the point where we're running out of space in our 15 order group. So let's see what we can do to maybe upgrade some stuff. All right, so we have space for some more support. Let's go ahead and grab the MedTech Obsidian. It's actually not Obsidian, it's Obsidon Mechanoid. Okay, so we're going to grab this guy. He's a really solid Whip 14 engineer and doctor. Moves really fast. The key here, though, is that he is size 3, so he's not your average sized size 2 doctor or engineer. So you have to make sure that you hide him appropriately because he could be easier to see with his big base. But this is a solid support piece that you could put into any list and feel happy about. Let's go ahead and grab him. And because he's an engineer and a doctor, that will really help out this list because we can repair the Unidrons and we can heal the wound guys, right? So let's go ahead and grab a little helper bot for him, which in this army are called slave drones. We could grab 2 because we have points, but I think I'm going to stick with just 1 for now. Okay, we've got some more points and we've run out of slots, so let's go ahead and try to upgrade one of these Imatrons. I'd rather upgrade an Imatron over something like an Icadron, just because Imatrons are nice when you need them, but if we don't need them, I'd rather have something that can fight back. So let's actually grab, because we already have the E-drone, and we have the points and the SWC, I'm going to go and grab one of the drop troops we have. We've got the Fracta. Fracta is really cool because they have a jump form and a survival form. That means once they have, they've got transmutation wound. So when they drop in and they take a wound, they don't go unconscious. This transmutation wound profile will take this upper profile and turn it into this one once they take their first wound. So the notable thing here is that it's called survival form because they get basically double their armor and double their BTS, which is insane. So after they take a wound, now they're harder to kill. Really cool idea for a unit. So we don't have enough for some of these nicer ones. And honestly, I'd really like to grab one. We could drop 3 points from the slave drone. But I would really like to have that so that we can expand the medtech's influence here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop one of these Imatrons and grab the Fracta. All right, so this looks pretty good. One thing we can do here is I'm going to go ahead and downgrade this Icadron a little bit. We're going to swap it for, there's the R drone. We only get 1 R drone in this army. These are just the basic flash pull spots that we have in all the other ones. Obviously, they don't come with the flamethrowers, but they do come with mimetism, which makes their flash pulls a little easier to go off. So let's go ahead and swap that. And I think we're so close to being able to get that Imatron back. You know what? I think what we can do here is, because the medtech is going to be handling some of our healing that we need, and we already have an NCO in the form of Norkius, let's go ahead and swap this Nexus Engineer real quick. So for the Nexus Engineer, if we drop that. Instead, I think we can grab this hacker profile, which is still really cool. Go ahead and grab the hacker. It's 1 point less. We definitely have the SWC. So let's go ahead and swap that in. And there, now we've got 4 points left to fill out our final order. We just grab the Imatron, which is not a remote, it's a light infantry, hilariously. And there we go. So real quick, let me go ahead and swap some of these things around, because we've got a lot of active turn things up here that we could have swapped around so that we have more flexibility here. So I think I'm going to keep the Fracta down here, just because we can use these orders to surprise our opponent when she drops in. Let's move the E-Drone for sure, because the E-Drone can spend one order at the beginning of the game and then set it and forget it on its assisted fire to either the Q-Drone or our Unidron. Speaking of Q-Drone, let's go ahead and move the Q-Drone down here too, because it's a total reaction bot. We might want to put it on ARO and it might die, right? So, and it's a good unit to have to spend orders on too, to be honest, because you could use it in the active turn really effectively, especially if you put the assisted fire on it. I think Bit is a good option to have in the second pool too. So let's go ahead and move some orders up top again, because I do like to have a mostly full pool. Let's go ahead and move the Icadron and the R-Drone. And yeah, I think honestly that might be good. So for this list, I think we've got a lot of really cool units here. This really showcases some of the best parts of Onyx. Obviously, we have not touched any of the tags yet, but trust me, in these next two lists, we are definitely going to be doing that. So let's just name this. So because this list is sort of hitting us from all angles, we've got the impersonation marker, we've got the drop troop, we've got the Unidrons up front, we've got Norkius running around in the midfield. I think let's just go ahead and call this one multiple threats. Because there's going to be a lot of things that your opponent's worried about here. Alright, so let's move on to the next list. Alright, for this next list, I think I want to show off one of the tags. And one of my favorite tags in this faction is the Overdrawn. So the Overdrawn is really cool and unique because it's got access to some interesting things, like the Tinbot Albedo, for example. So because his Albedo is on a Tinbot, when we put him in a duo with any other thing, then that unit is also going to gain Albedo, because Tinbots apply to the whole fire team. That means that the firewall -3 will also be applied. So we could use that to pair up a hacker, which would give them that firewall, or I think it would be really cool to put the engineer Nexus with this guy. So we've got a couple of profiles here that are all pretty awesome. We've got the hyper rapid magnetic cannon. That's going to be a devastating weapon with lots of dice. Plasma sniper rifle with +1 burst means 3 plasma shots at long range. Also awesome. Then we've got the heavy rocket launcher with +1 burst, so 3 heavy rocket launcher shots, and he comes with a submachine gun, which means that he won't suffer when he gets up close. This one is my favorite, and it's also the cheapest for some reason, because submachine guns and heavy rocket launchers are fairly cheap weapons. So we're going to go for this one. And as I said earlier, let's go ahead and grab the Nexus operative with engineer. That means that wherever this Overdrawn goes, we're always going to have the Nexus right there next to him to pick him back up. And if we need to reposition the duo, we can use NCO to do that. Alright. we've got our tag team, so let's go ahead and find our core fire team. Once again, we're going to go to the Unidrons as usual. We're going to grab that plasma sniper rifle. And this time I think we'll also grab the Spitfire. Obviously it's not going to be a super amazing unit to use because it is BS11, but it's still something, and it's still going to be a burst 5 weapon in anything above a 3-man fire team. So let's go ahead and grab that. Then we'll go for our standard forward observers. And let's stick our Nexus Lieutenant in here. As I mentioned in the previous video, Nexus Lieutenant is going to be a popular pick. So if you're fighting Onyx and you see a Nexus just chilling there with a combi rifle, this might be their lieutenant. Alright, so we've got our core fire team, we've got our attackers. Let's also showcase another scary unit in Onyx, and that is the Noctifer. These are Shazvasti units that are very scary because they have hidden deployment and a missile launcher. This is a very, very nasty ARO to not know about, and when you find out, it might hurt really bad. You generally want to wait until your opponent moves out of fire team, across a gap, or out of cover, and then basically blow all of them up. So we're going to grab this guy right here, and would you look at that, we're almost out of SWC. That's okay. Because we do have the Unidrons, let's go ahead and grab the E-Drone. Because Spitfire Unidron is not amazing, but he'll be a lot better if we give him assisted fire, should the sniper go down. So let's go ahead and grab that. That tops up our SWC, and at this point, let's go ahead and just grab some support. So we're going to grab our standard order battery of a couple of Icadrons. We could go for an Imatron. Let's grab one for now, because we still have some points. Let's go ahead and grab the MedTech Obsidon. He's Dr. Worm, let's be honest. Everyone calls this guy Dr. Worm. Grab him. And we'll give him a slave drone. Alright. So what do we want to do next? So we have the engineer to heal the overdrawn or repair any states that are on him, but it might be nice to have someone who can go and kill enemy hackers. So we obviously could go for the Greif again, but we're out of SWC. We could go for the Malignos. So the Malignos are kind of expensive because they do have Mimetism -6 and hidden deployment and regeneration. Lots of really awesome skills, by the way. But sometimes it can be tough to bring them because they're, 35 points and up or 31 points and up. But they're still solid units. So, and I think that the killer hacking device will be perfect for this kind of list. We can use his shock mines and submachine gun, or even his killer hacking device, to kill enemy hackers. And yeah, so let's do that. Let's stick him up here. Move. The Noctifer definitely wants to be in pool 2 because his job is to hide and then jump out and die probably after killing a bunch of other things, hopefully. Okay, so now I'm looking at this, and I'm realizing that we've got the missile launcher, we've got the sniper rifle. Those can really hold down the line in terms of ARO, and we still have plenty of points left. What if we go in and try to grab one of these more expensive overdrawns? So if we swap out the HRL, we could grab the plasma sniper rifle, but I really would like that hyper rapid magnetic cannon. Let's see. If we grab that one, we need 1 point. All right, can we find it? Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and just drop one of these Unidrons down to a non-specialist profile. And there you have it. Looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with this. We might want to put the E-drone in the second pool for reasons previously stated. And we'll go ahead and move the Imatron up because we should be able to hide this guy pretty well. And there we have it. Looks like a solid grouping to me, and wow, I did not expect us to fit the Overdron with hyper rapid magnetic cannon in there. This guy's going to tear through opponents and then be really hard to take out because he's got the Nexus right next to him. So let's go ahead and name him Overwhelming Firepower. Nice. All right, let's get to the next list. All right, for this next list, I really want to highlight the other tags we have. We do have the Sphinx, but I'm not going to build a list with them today. Let's go for these Zeodrons. Zeodrons are super cool and super fun. These are the ones that can form a Harris team, and they're also really durable and have a super jump. So there's a few options here. You could go for a Red Fury, a K1 marksman rifle, or a multi-marksman rifle. The K1 marksman rifle is really useful for taking on enemy tags, so it's useful to grab this one when you can, especially if you're in a meta that brings a lot of armor. So we could grab one of these, but honestly, if you don't have the points and you do have the SWC, don't feel bad about swapping to the multi-marksman rifle, because that's another really great weapon. For me, I like to have a high burst weapon in a Harris, or any fire team for that matter, if I'm going to be using them actively. So the Red Fury is a great option in my opinion. It's only one SWC because a Red Fury is a cheap SWC weapon. Normally a Red Fury is lower damage than something like a Spitfire, but because we're a tag, we're using bigger bullets, and we get that +1 damage. So it's basically a shock Spitfire at that point. Pretty solid. Let's grab him. All right. So we could go for like a Samaritan or something like that, but I think one of the real advantages of Onyx is the access to that Nexus operative with Engineer and NCO. Notably, this guy is going to be a little bit slower than the Zeodrons are, but it's worth it to be able to have an Engineer right next to them, in my opinion. And obviously, he's a very cheap addition to this fire team, so you're getting those full Harris fire team bonuses for cheap. You're basically giving +1 burst to each of these guys and giving him a shotgun to go along with it. So we've got our Harris here. As always, we'll move back to our tried and true Unidron core fire team. In general, Onyx is kind of one of those lists, or one of those armies where as long as you have the core units, like after you've bought the core units, you can sort of mix and match all of the other little things and have a really solid list. So in my opinion, it's kind of a really fun army to play, and it's a fun army to collect because you're not having to buy a bunch of very necessary things. You're always going to lean on the tried and trues, and then you get more opportunity to play with the fun stuff as well. So we'll go ahead and grab the plasma sniper rifle, and so we could go for our forward observers again. Let's go ahead. We know we're going to grab the Nexus Lieutenant, so let's do that. Let's click on the Nexus, grab the Lieutenant. This is our guy. We could double up with another Nexus engineer. So let's do it. So we've got our engineer right here next to the Unidron. Oh, there's a character Nexus. That is Now. So Now is really cool. He's got a killer hacking device with whip 14, which is really nice. Makes him a solid specialist. He's got all the same stuff that a normal Nexus would have, but he dodges a bit further. He's got shock immunity. And of course, he's got the hacking device with an upgrade of white noise. That's a really nasty upgrade to just give some guy. So this is a really awesome profile. He's got a plasma rifle instead of a combi rifle like the others have, and a pitcher. So he's putting out his own repeaters if he needs to. Now, Kurnow does count as pure for this, so feel free to stick him in the Unidron Fireteam. And if we are going to have a killer hacking device, I think it's kind of worth it to grab a Tinbot Firewall -3 if we want. Obviously, this is a little expensive compared to our normal plasma rifle forward observers, but we are getting the K1. We are getting the Firewall if we do choose to move out with all of these guys, so I think it's worth it. There we go. All right. Because we're bringing 2 tags this time, it's really useful to be able to have some sort of scalpel that can kill enemy hackers. Obviously, you could try to out-hack them, but sometimes that takes more orders than you need. And there's no better scalpel in this army than the Greif Operator. We'll grab the impersonation, as always. And let's also grab... We're kind of leaning into hacking a little bit here, because we've got Kurnow and the Tinbot. Let's go ahead and increase our hacking presence with Bit and Kiss. We'll go with my favorite profile, the one with the pitcher +1 burst on Kiss. So we'll grab the Killer Hacker. And the useful thing about Bit and Kiss is they're going to be able to put out those repeaters, and then Kurnow will be able to put out white noise through those repeaters. Now, one thing to mention here, which might be a problem, if Kurnow is going to be the person that you're using to put out this white noise, just make sure that nobody can see your Unidron plasma sniper rifle while he's doing that. Because when he becomes the Fireteam leader, the Unidron will still activate and could take an ARO. So just be careful with how you do that. Might be worth breaking him out of the Fireteam for that moment, just so that you don't lose your guy for free. You could even, if you wanted to use this list and swap it around so Kurnow is in the Zeodron link, I think that could be interesting. If you did that, I would probably not take the Firewall here and swap some things around. Like, you don't need 2 Engineer Nexus in this one pool. But anyway, let's move on for now. We're at 274, so really there's not much left to do but grab our Icadrons, and Imitrons. Light infantry. I always forget this. All right, there we go. All right. Oh, and would you look at that? That's our full 300 points. Real quick, let's just adjust some things. Again, I like to have Bit and Kiss in their own pool because they're a unit that is useful to be able to just throw out their pitchers. And honestly, I like this. I think this is okay. Real quick, while we have time, I'll just go ahead and do those swaps real quick. So if we wanted to put Kurnow in the Harris, we drop the Engineer because we don't need 2 of them. What other Nexus could we grab instead? So we could grab the Hacker, and honestly, that might be a good thing right there. Now we've got even more hackers. Now, if we have a ton of hackers, it might be useful to grab the T-drone. Man, I'm going off on a long tangent here. Hold up. But that's 18 points. We'd have to sacrifice both Icadrons to get that. I don't know if that's worth it. I think we can take solace in the fact that we've got a ton of hackers. We can cause a lot of spotlights. We can hack some enemies. We're really protecting our Zeodrons that way. Yeah, I think we'll forego the guided missile list. Though I do think that Onyx could potentially do it pretty well with all of the potent hackers we have. And obviously killer hackers as well that are scary to go up against. Because we've got a lot of hackers here, I think I'm going to call this... Alright, we've got everybody is a hacker around here, huh? Okay, let's go ahead and get out of here. If you liked any of these lists today, let us know in the comments. If you thought that there's something that we could have done better, let me know as well. We'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like and subscribe button. And I wish you all good luck on your next games. Goodbye.